Ladies and gentlemen, if you could all please take your seats, we would like to begin. And I'll take this opportunity to remind you that in the event of a siren, this auditorium is a protected space, so please remain seated. Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome to this year's Gandel Forum on the Middle East. This is one of the Board of Governors meeting's key sessions, and it traditionally deals with current topics in the Middle East. Since October 7th, Israel's security reality has undergone a profound upheaval. This morning, we will take a moment to reflect together on the events that have shaken us, discuss their implications in terms of security, society, and the region, and explore what the future may hold. I would like to invite Colonel Dr. Michael Milshtein, head of the Palestinian Studies Forum at the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Studies, and our guest speaker, Yoav Glandt, former Minister of Defense and former Major General in the Israel Defense Forces. And just before I turn the stage over to you, Michael, I want to also note that we have with us today Ms. Glandt, Claudine, here in the audience. She took it upon herself to take care of the wounded soldiers and security forces when the war started. She was an officer in the IDF and retired with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the Navy. And since October 7th, she has been regularly visiting hospitals to see the war's wounded and really helping modestly anyone in need. So Claudine, thank you so much for being here today and for all of your efforts. And now, Michael and Yoav, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you again. And if you remember, last year when we met, we said that it is very complicated to speak about a war which actually hasn't been ended, and no one really knows how it will end and when it will end. And a year after, here, actually the whole Middle East was changed. Yahya Sinwar, the person, the terrorist who promoted and actually thought about the offensive of October the 7th. He was killed with most of Hamas leadership. Hezbollah was defeated. Assad's regime, after 54 years, collapsed. And a new president was elected in the US with a new vision, a new policy. But still, we are in a roller coaster, full of question marks. We still face a war in Gaza, war with the Houthis. I'm quite sure that you all pay attention during this night about the war with the Houthis. And of course, a lot of heavy question marks regarding Syria and mainly regarding Iran. And in order to shed a light about the present and about the future, we have the honor to speak with a person who has rich experience regarding strategic security, politics, the former Defense Minister, General Yoav Glandt. Thank you for being with us. And General Glandt, I will start immediately with the most important front, Gaza Strip. After more than 19 months, Israel, when we think about the former goals of the war, Israel didn't really implement the two basic goals of the war. How can you explain that? Why did we arrive to such a situation?
Well, good morning, first of all, Shabbat Shalom. I apologize for my unshaped English. It wasn't very useful to speak English during the war against Hamas and Hezbollah. So I'll try to do my best in order to express myself. When the war started, the first day, on October 7, I defined 5 goals for this war, and those goals were adopted by the full cabinet a few days later. 3 of these goals have been achieved. The first one is to dismantle the Hamas formations. There is no such a thing as Hamas battalions, brigades, and definitely not a division. As you remember, we were attacked on October 7. The flag was the flag of Hamas, but the formation was a commando division, 4,000 people, drones, boats, parachutes, pickups with heavy machine guns, doctors, their doctors in the area, communication officers. I mean, this was a military formation. It's not exist anymore, not in defense and not in offense. Second, we decapitize all the leadership of Hamas, Hania, Sinwar, Def, and many, many others. Third, we created...
Both Sinwars.
Both Sinwars, and some of them, I mean, some of these terrorists, I am personally chasing them for the last 28 years, since I was commander of a Gaza division many years ago. And the third parameter, the third goal, was to achieve the freedom to act and to maneuver in Gaza, and I put a benchmark, and the benchmark was the ability of a single brigade to maneuver anywhere in Gaza. This was achieved already many, many months ago. We stayed with 2 goals that we didn't achieve, and the difference between what we achieved, which is defeating Hamas militarily, and to gain a victory, the difference is these 2 goals, because they need a political arrangement. One is to replace Hamas with an alternative. And the second one, and the most important and most urgent one, is to bring back the hostages. Now, in order to achieve these goals, there is only one order. First, bring the hostages, and then continue to dismantle and to destroy Hamas. Otherwise, if you walk the other order, there will be no one to bring back home, eventually. We are going to fight Hamas not for a month and not for a year, for many years. I was fighting Hamas terrorists in '87 in the first Intifada, in Judah and Samaria, all over. And then in a defensive shield operation many years ago, 23 years ago. And we are still fighting them every day in Jenin and in Nablus and in other places. So unfortunately, this is an epidemic that you need to control. But the issue of hostages is a very important issue. First of all, human, live Israelis, live Jews. Second, this is a Jewish tradition. You always, kulam ba'ad echad and echad ba'ad kulam, all for one and one for all. Pidyon shvuim. Second, this is a value for the IDF. You never leave wounded soldiers in the area, and most of these people are soldiers. But no one else. Third, this is a declared goal of war, one of them, and you need to achieve your goals. And the most important thing is that we build our nation, our military, our defensive, on a very simple principles. We are better and have better quality because we are fighting hundreds of millions around us that can recruit millions to fight us. But we are better, and we are fighting for our values. And one of these values is to bring live hostages and hostages in general, to bring them back home. Otherwise, what mother will send their kids the next year to the military? We created It's a very special situation in Israel, that people are going to the beach and going to travel in Southeast Asia or South America and volunteer to the best units in the military, and this is all the same. This is not the same. But we were smart enough during the generations to create this situation. We need this way of altruism that is so unique to the Israeli public. Otherwise, there will be no one to participate. And I'll conclude by saying that if you don't put a red line that say, no matter what are the costs, we are going to bring our hostages back, the next phase will be that if someone is wounded in the battlefield, and this is only a question of calculation, you don't sell the soldiers because they can get hit. And you can go on with this situation. So I think that fighting for your own principles and your own values as a nation, this is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. And that's what I mean to say.
And you know, General Gallant, you presented your opinion, your position many times in the Israeli media during the last month. And I mean the priority that you give to deal, to a ceasefire now, and later to defeat Hamas. And I personally, I support, I agree with this opinion. But there are many people in Israel who says, if we will arrive a ceasefire, we won't be able to renew the war, to return to war and then to defeat Hamas. What is your opinion toward this argument?
First of all, let's remember that the word war describes a very wide spectrum. A year ago, it was 7 enemies in 7 different places, and only in Gaza, 22 brigades. Right now, it's one front, and half of the amount of those brigades are involved in the situation, and a very small portion of the Air Force. Okay, so this is a big difference. Now, what is the purpose that a country is taking hundreds of thousands, or at least dozens of thousands of soldiers into the battlefield? The goal is always to achieve a political vector, a political goal. And the political goal should be defined precisely. Now, we stayed only with 2 goals: replace Hamas with an alternative and bring the hostages. If you want to replace Hamas, it's not enough to go on and on into fighting into Gaza. And don't take me wrong. I'm not against killing Hamas terrorists. I was making living out of this issue for the last 48 years. So I understand the necessity, and those murders have to be punished. But if you cultivate the field 10 times and you don't put a seed, nothing will grow. So the only option to replace Hamas is by creating an alternative, so once you withdraw from a given area, somebody else will take control. Otherwise, it won't happen. So this effort, this military effort, is not aimed in order to replace Hamas, because there is no system that will do it. So the only option is to create the conditions to bring back the hostages for a deal. Why a deal? Because it's impossible to rescue all of them by military operations. Maybe 10%, if we are lucky. And the role of the military is to create the conditions, and the role of the government is to seal the deal. Now, the army, the military, created those conditions a year ago in May, in June, in July, in August, but every time the conditions were there, the government refused to create a deal.
So no alternative was created, actually.
So if you don't go and assault in order to take the opportunity, nothing will go. And a deal is a deal. You get something and you give something. This is a deal. It's not unilateral. So I believe that we need to make any effort to create the deal. I think that Hamas is in a very, very low situation, but time is working against us, and especially against the hostages. So each one of you have to ask himself, if the goal is not to bring the hostages and not to replace Hamas regime, what is the goal? Maybe you have answers for yourself.
And you know, there are several people, you mentioned, what is the goal if it's not releasing the hostages or defeating, or actually defeat Hamas in total manner. And there are people in the Israeli arena, in the Israeli politics, who speaks about re-establishment of the military regime, the civil administration in Gaza, by occupying all Gaza. Do you think that it's likely, and, you know, this is the right thing to do?
On December 23, I proposed the cabinet with a full plan, and I went to the public on January 4, 24. You can look at it on the media. And I said there are only three options of who is going to control Gaza in the day after. A phrase that I was using and turned to be very popular. Those three options are either Hamas, which is unacceptable, or Israel, that I think that this is a disaster. And eventually we won't stay in Gaza. We won't stay in Gaza, whether it will take a year, 5 years, or 10 years. And most of the people who want to take over Gaza and to establish a military control and a civilian control, most of them haven't been in their life in Gaza. Most of them. Believe me, I was commanding this region. Yeah, these are facts. I was commanding this region for 3 years as a division commander. I was training there years ago, and I was commanding the Southern Command for 5 years. So I know pretty good the situation over there. There is a third option, and the third option is somebody else. So I was looking for volunteers all over the world. And I find out that the Scandinavians want to stay in Sweden and in Norway. They don't want to come to Gaza. They have awkward reasons, but this is the situation. And the only option is Palestinians, not Hamas. And
local man from Gaza.
Local. And, you know, we know them because they were controlling Gaza for years. And these people are very quiet until recently when they started to demonstrate because they are afraid. And each one of the demonstrators, each one of the thousands represent thousands, or at least hundreds, because they are afraid. And the only situation, the only solution is once you take over a certain area, you clean it from terrorists, and you let somebody else to take control of this area. Otherwise, once you evacuate, Hamas will take control. As simple as that. So if I conclude it, I think it's a very bad idea to control Gaza. First of all, because of the alternative price. If you occupied 3, 4 divisions in Gaza, who is going to fight in Judah and Samaria, in Lebanon and Syria? I mean, we don't have so many forces. And this will be a very heavy load on the reservists. And second, I think that the life that will be spent in this situation is a price that is irreversible. And we don't have to pay this price. So I think we need another solution. And right now, we are not working on it. And I'm not saying that I love the other solution, but it's not much better than Hamas. Yes, this is the only option that is reasonable to my understanding.
So, when you see General Gallant, several weeks ago, the government decided about Gideon's chariots, the new operation. And we don't really understand in a full manner what is the purpose, but many people speak about full or almost full occupation of Gaza. What is your opinion about the purpose or about the likelihood of this operation, Gideon's chariots?
Well, I don't like to, to guess, but the role of the military is to ask not what to do, but what is the purpose. Why do you do it? What for? And the only explanation that makes sense to me is to make sure that we create better conditions to rescue the hostages. Anything else is something that is out of the defensive and military lines. Deal with other issues, and this is something that each one of you can translate to himself.
And as you said, we actually don't speak about any other alternative, only full occupation or the sad fact that Hamas will stay there. And I agree with you, no alternative in between. And you know, General Gallant, last week, greatest drama wasn't Gaza. It was President Trump's visit to the area, mainly to the Gulf. And we must be frank enough to admit that Israel was not a part of this regional strategic party. Do you really, and of course, you know, the whole idea of normalization with Saudi Arabia, it seems that we are getting far from this idea. Do you really think that mainly, if Israel will promote or will increase the war in Gaza, is there any chance for normalization, mainly with Saudi Arabia?
We need to understand the importance of a peace agreement with Saudi. It's not only Israel and Saudi. This is a new situation in the Middle East and in many ways in the world, because the king of Saudi, MBS, the Sheikh,
the crown prince,
is not only controlling Gaza, but he is the one who is holding the holy places, Mecca and Medina and other places. The meaning is that his signal, and by the way, he's the most popular Muslim in the world for all the people under the age of 30, all the Muslim people under the age of 30.
I think that President Trump even called him last week a great man and the best man I know.
So, looking at this situation, this is a gate not only to Saudi Arabia, but also in the future to Pakistan and maybe Indonesia and Malaysia and other great Muslim countries. So it can change the whole situation, and instead of being isolated, we will isolate Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas, maybe with the support of Russia, but all the rest will be in the Israeli side. Israel, Western European countries, moderate Arab countries, which is a majority, and of course the United States of America. So the importance is huge. By the way, when we started this negotiation by the beginning of 23, when I was defense minister, the reason that the last president was convinced to give them, I would say, an American umbrella, a national support, was only because of this reason, that he was convinced that something will change in the Middle East dramatically. But now we have to face the facts. And the facts are that there are ongoing, I would say, 7 ongoing negotiations between the United States and the Muslim Arab entities that each one of them have very major interest with Israel, that neither one of them is going through Israeli channels or with the involvement of Israel. Syria, Hamas, Saudis, Qataris, Emiratis, Iranians, and Houthis. All of them, it's above our head. So I don't think that this is the right approach. And sometimes in this chess game, you need to give a pawn in order to gain the goal. And for me, it's a dramatic situation, and I think that this, I would say, situation, maybe theoretical proposal, will not be there forever. It will last for a certain amount of time.
And you mentioned, General Gallant, the relations between Israel and the American administration with Washington, and of course, the importance is almost strategic and existential for Israel. And you mentioned there were several surprises during the last month, gaps. I mean, the negotiations between Washington and Iran, the direct negotiations with Hamas of the Americans. We do know that they still there are ongoing negotiations between the Americans and Hamas, and the meeting with Giuliani in Riyadh, the new president of Syria, and the agreement with the Houthis. Do you think that there is a gap started to be created between Washington and Israel, and what will happen to these important relations if the war in Gaza will be expanded, and if there will be a contradiction between what Washington wants and Israel wants?
Well, my translation to the situation, and I'm not in every detail because I'm out of the system for the last half year, but my translation is that first of all, the president, American president, is a great supporter of Israel and the Jewish people. And we are lucky to be in this situation. And I really admire the way that President Trump is treating Israel and the Jewish people, and that means a lot of parameters, a lot. Anti-Semitism in America, and weapon supply for Israel, power projection in the Middle East, and international politics, everything. But my translation is that he said something like, I'm not against Israel, but if you go your way, I go my way. So good luck. And some people in Israel believe that America and Israel are similar, shoulder to shoulder. Well, this is not exactly the situation. So if they go their way and we go our way, it's not a good idea. The only country in the world that we share interests and values with is the United States of America. We share interests with some, we share values with some, and we are lucky to have the United States as the strongest kids in the classroom in our side. And we need to preserve it. The most important thing for the security and the future of Israel is the IDF, and the second one is the United States of America. As simple as that. And we need to preserve those relations, and I hope it will be done. And we have a very positive approach of the president. So we need to hug it and adopt it.
No doubt. And we mentioned Iran, which is actually a joint interest of both Israel, United States, actually most of the world. And but we saw about more than a month ago that there was a kind of surprise. I mean, the negotiations between Iran and the Americans about an agreement, a new one, regarding the nuclear project of Iran. And you know, many people here in Israel say that maybe Iran is much more important than the war in Gaza. I mean, the project in Iran. Do you think that right now, when we see the negotiations between the Americans and the Iranians, we are more closer to escalation and to a war, or maybe to an agreement that will be, it seems to me, quite problematic for Israel?
With your permission, let me describe in 2 minutes what happened recently during the last 2 years, a little bit more, with Iran. When I entered the job in January 23, I ordered the IDF to conduct a war game. And the war game was, if an escalation with Iran happens, what will be the Israeli goal and the Israeli approach? That was the goal, and I'm not talking about what is the reason for this escalation. And when we finish and I conclude the rebriefing, I said to the IDF simple things, and I gave them a simple direction. If we finish a round of escalation with Iran, you need to make sure that first you deter them from going on. But the way that this deterrence should be achieved is very, very precise. We need to make sure that they are weaker militarily and we are stronger militarily. This was the principles that led us in the operation we took on October 26, because we eliminate the strategic air defense around Tehran, the S-300. We eliminate the missiles and the operational radars around the Gulf, the near Abadan, Shat el-Arab. And this is away from Tehran, maybe 1,000 kilometers away. I mean, in a whole different place. And we dismantle their ability to produce explosives for ballistic missiles by hitting those mixers, and their ability degrade from 2 missiles a day into 1 missile a week, which is a big difference. Now, by doing that, after eliminate Nasrallah and the missiles and a lot of the activists there, and later on, when the ball roll and Syria collapse in a domino effect, all of a sudden we got into a situation that Iran is exposed to an Israeli and American attack. Now, let's speak about, how you evaluate the situation. The distance between Israel and Iran, between Tel Aviv and Tehran, Jerusalem and Tehran, is 1,000 miles, 15 plus 100 kilometers. This is a long, long distance in Israeli dimensions. And Israel can hit Iran and create severe damage to the nuclear military infrastructure and facilities. That's for sure. But the United States of America is 50 times stronger and 10 times closer because they stay on carriers and in the Gulf state. So you can double it. It's 100 times more, hundreds of times more important and more stronger than Israel. So if America is involved, the damage to the Iranian nuclear plan is a total damage. And if Israel do it by itself, it's a temporary damage. So what the president is doing right now, I think that is going in the right direction because he's not wasting the military option by dealing on a diplomatic option. He approach in both directions and promote them. To my understanding, no matter what the deal, even the best deal you will get with the Iranians, is not enough. And the reason is that they will cheat you. We know them. I know them for the last almost 30 years, and some people know them much more. And their goal is not to enrich uranium for civilian purposes. They control 11% of the oil and gas reserves in the world. They don't need it. They have a different purpose. And this is well known to everybody in the Western world, and not only in the Western world. But speaking about heads of agencies and the militaries, it's well known. When you speak to the politicians above them, they have different approach for political reasons. So the only solution with the Iranians, unfortunately, is brute force. Unfortunately, because diplomacy is over.
And so you actually say that you see no option for an attack that Israel will promote by her own without the Americans.
I didn't say that.
Okay, so this is maybe my wrong understanding.
I said,
but yeah, sorry.
I described the upside and the downside. And it is well understood that once the United States is negotiate, this is also on behalf of Israel, even if we don't vote for it. But we understand the situation. But Israel has its own capability and its own power, and we are small but very effective. As I used to say to my American colleagues, the combination of American jets and Israeli pilots is the best in the world.
Although, I do think that cooperation, or, at least coordination, is very much needed if we think about such a scenario. I mean, that Israel will decide to do something alone against Iran, but I really hope that it will be in a mutual manner, not kind of a unilateral step. And we spoke General Gallant about the Palestinians, about Iran, and about the relations with the Americans. And there is a very other important thing happened during the last year, and this is the developments in the northern front, mainly with Hezbollah. And I personally, I must say, I think that the most important strategic achievement of Israel during this war is the war, or actually the defeat of Hezbollah. Most of the developments took place during the period you was Minister of Defense. And right now, first of all, how do you describe Hezbollah, the threat, the challenge of Hezbollah toward Israel?
Let me start by describing what happened in very short phrases. Hamas opened a war on October 7. Hezbollah opened a war of attrition on October 8. On October 11, we had an opportunity, and I came to the Prime Minister with this opportunity after discussing it with the military and the Shabak, Mossad, and all the others. And the idea that I brought to the table consist of 3 phases, 3 different operations. The first one is to hit and to eliminate 14 leaders of Hezbollah from Nasrallah and down. And you know the names because a lot of them were eliminated one by one later on. All of them under the ground, shallow place, achievable. 1. Second, hit all the missiles and the rockets. This operation was prepared and ready for the last years. And you have seen it happening a year later. We achieved something like 80% of the missiles and the rockets. We could have achieved 95% because a lot of it wasn't in the bush, it was in storages. so it was easier. And the third, activate the major surprise we prepared. We equipped Hezbollah with 15,000 walkie-talkies that were on Hezbollah vests, and we needed them to put the vests on them. But in order to do it, you need to maneuver, and then they put the vest and get into defense. And this was supposed to be the third operation. The Prime Minister, as it was described many times later, said to me and to others, you see all these buildings. He was pointing to the high buildings in Tel Aviv. Everything will be collapsed. Hezbollah will destroy it all as a retaliation against us. And he refused to do it. He recruited Gantz and Eisenkot to join the government, the cabinet, and this exact day. And also was speaking to the President of the United States that naturally reject anything that, create an unstable situation in the Middle East. And by the way, this was the only recommendation, the only suggestion I brought to the cabinet during the war, dealing with military issues that wasn't adopted. But this was a main junction. And, usually you say in America, water under the bridge. In this situation, the water came twice under the same bridge, because a year later, you have seen it happening. Nasrallah, Muhsen, Akil, Karki, all these names, the missiles, the rockets, and unfortunately only the beepers. The beepers were only the pagers. They were only 5% of the operation. The major one was the walkie-talkies, but this was impossible to use, and once we hit with the beepers and we hit something like 2,000 terrorists in their fingers and their eyes, the next day they were looking for the walkie-talkies. We activated the walkie-talkies, but they were in the storages, not on the body of the soldier. So the situation that was achieved militarily is very, very important, but it's more of, heat and deterrence rather than elimination. We could have eliminated Hezbollah terror organization totally. This didn't happen, but we achieved a very important goal. Now, in Lebanon, to my belief, there is an option to create something different. And the reason is that there are at least 3 other parties, the Druze, the Christians, and the Sunnis, that want to take over and want to have better life rather than to be under so-called occupation of Hezbollah. And even in the Shiite side, there are people who reject Nasrallah and the Hezbollah. So I think that the options are there. We need to build them. I'm watching the new government, the new president. I think they are on the right direction, but they are very weak. So for the time being, we need to help them to maintain the situation in Lebanon by hitting Hezbollah every time that Hezbollah interfere the agreement that was achieved. Because when I draw the principle with Amos Hochstein about this agreement, there were 3 simple principles. 1, no military formation south of the Litani River. 2nd, no smuggling of weapons, sea, air, and land to Lebanon. And 3rd, Israel has a side letter with the United States of America that if no one is avoiding those issues in the UN or the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, we are allowed to do it by ourselves. And I said to Hochstein and I said to Brett McGurk and to Jack Sullivan and the others, they will try to sabotage this agreement. The first time we will hit them, they will retaliate, we hit them harder, and eventually, because we are strong and they are weak, this can last. And I think that there is a good option to create a better situation in Lebanon. And this, of course, is connected to what's going on in Syria. And in Syria, if you try to describe the situation in one word, it's good. In two words, not good. But it's much better than it was when Assad was controlling, and there was a free flow of weapons from Iran, Iraq to Syria and to Lebanon. The Syrian soil was used as a launchpad for weapons from Iran to Lebanon. Now, for their own purposes, because they are Sunnis and they are fighting these terrorists from Hezbollah, they isolate the borders and the option to penetrate Syria in order to smuggle weapons. So this is very helpful in Syria and in Lebanon. But of course, when there is a vacuum, somebody else is trying to get in. And even the best results and the best phenomena that we achieve in Syria and in Lebanon must be maintained. If you don't maintain it, eventually it will change.
And you mentioned, correct, General Gallant, that today we face a new and positive situation in Lebanon, a new president and a new government. Is there any option, according to your opinion, to normalization with Lebanon? There are even people here who speak about normalization with Syria, Syria of Julani, Asharad. You think it's likely?
You know, it depends how far is your horizons and how high you are standing, okay? So I believe that speaking about the future, there is an option. And by mentioning what I said about Saudi, this is also a gate to those issues because the momentum will be very, very positive. And make no mistake, Israel can achieve agreement and maybe peace treaties with countries only because we are strong. If we will be weak, it's impossible, and this is a disaster. So once we are strong enough from this high position, we can trade a lot, and I think that the Syrians and the Lebanese have a lot to gain and a lot to lose if they go the other way. Therefore, I believe that this is an option, but we cannot walk in American rhythm, in American tempo. Julani was ISIS and Al Qaeda a day ago, a week ago. Now he went to Hermes, bought a 3-piece suit, a nice tie. Now he's
and ISIS attacks him.
Yes, he's a peacekeeper. So, I mean, situation is not that fast, but in the order of priorities, he has many others to fight before Israel. He needs to establish the Sunni side because he is threatened by his own people. He needs to create some kind of understanding with the Kurds and with the Druze. You need to make sure that he is not attacked by Hezbollah on the southern side, southwest side of Syria. You have the Russians in Tartus and Latakia and all this area. You have the Turks in the north. And after all those, he has Israel. So we are lucky not to be in the front line. Plus, we understand very well that he has no military option because we set them back 100 years. No planes, no ship, no tanks, no missiles. So people with pickups and AK-47 can create a lot of damage, but this is not existential threat. That's a big difference.
And we spoke about all the enemies of Israel, but we didn't speak about the Houthis. A very odd and annoying challenge. What can we do with them? 2,000 kilometers from us. Most of us don't really know them. Is there any solution?
In the first month or two, I think it was December 23, In one of my meetings here in Israel, 4 Eyes with Secretary Blinken, I presented him a contract. And he said, what is this contract? I said, this is a contract between the United States and Israel. And he said, I don't know any contract. I said, it is signed in 75. At that time, it was 48 years ago, by Gerald Ford and Yitzhak Rabin. And this is the entry to the peace agreement that took place later on with Egypt. And it said, because we are moving towards a peace agreement, the United States of America will secure the naval navigation in Gibraltar and Bab el-Mandab to Israel. I said, there is no expiration date. You need to fulfill it. And it's only 48 years ago. I mean, we are a young nation. For you, it's nothing. And of course, this is a major problem because the Houthis, first of all, they block 40% of the naval navigation from the Far East to Europe and on the other side, influence the world economy and everything. And empires need to learn from history. So look what the Romans did with the pirates at the time of Pompeius. This is very simple. I mean, there are many people who are more educated than me here in this room. You cannot allow those criminals to block the world. This is one issue. The second one is, you know, the special treatment they give to Israel. And we didn't know who are the Houthis when the war started. We had, you know, some idea, but this wasn't in our focus because we have Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah and others. After 3 months, we were supplying the United States of America with intel about this situation because we made a special effort that we initiate when they started to block the straits. And after they hit the first citizen in Israel, in Tel Aviv, with a drone, I ordered the IDF to go to and hit them in Hodeidah port. And this was the first hit. And by the way, we were warned by American seniors, military and officials, that say to us, the Houthis are different. Prepare yourself. And after we hit them in Hodeidah, and this was major, some of these people came to me and said, we, America, should have done it in the first place. It's good you did it. I said to them, this is the reason the United States of America need a superpower next to it. So we support you, but this is an American job, an American role, and you must make sure that this can be done. And I'll tell you something. If you kill 20 people of the leadership in the Houthis, it will collapse, all this rejection.
And now let's turn to another point. You know, since October the 7th, many people here in Israel speak about what were the reasons, what were the roots of this event, this failure. We use a lot the term conceptia, misconception. What went wrong with our decision makers? First of all, what do you think about really the roots of this failure? And second, all the voices heard about a commission of inquiry, serious one. What is your opinion about it?
Well, I'll start with the second question. Commission of inquiry is the only solution that will be acceptable by all the people in Israel. It's not perfect, but this is the only solution. By the way, it was established after the 73 war and after the 82 war, and there were different governments at that time. 73, it was Avoda, and 82, it was Likud. And I think that this is not a political issue. It must happen, must. I said it loud and clear, not in private conversation. I was speaking in front of thousands of people in the ceremony of the end of the officers' course in Mitzpe Ramon, and I said it very, very blunt and very simple, because this commission of inquiry needs to investigate everything. The IDF, the Shin Bet, the defense minister, the prime minister, the cabinet, and not only now, but also 10 years backwards. And that brings me to your first question. I was commanding Southern Command immediately after the disengagement for 5 years, 2005 until 2010. And because I was military secretary for Prime Minister Sharon before, the Americans were consulting with me many times officially. And this was still the end of Bush administration. And I knew them all, Colin Powell and Steve Hedley, Condoleezza Rice, and Bill Burns, who was there at this time working for the Republicans, and Bolton and others. And they decided that the best solution for Gaza will be elections. And I said to them, this is a grave mistake. And I said it loud and clear to the chief of staff and others. But it wasn't up to me, and the elections took place in 2006. Then my American colleagues went and said to me, listen, the people in Gaza chose Hamas, and this is fine. I said to them, according to your system, according to the theory, elections is a permanent issue that happened every few years. So we will see you in 10 years or 20 years. This is the last elections in Gaza. And that's what happened. So you achieve it once. And I think that this brings me to the roots of the mistake. The roots of the mistakes in the Israeli side was to imagine and to assume that there is such a thing as agreement in general and co-living with terror organization and terrorists that are radical Muslims, no matter if it's Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, or others. And the meaning is that in a certain point, when you turn your back to them, they will hit you, although you signed an agreement. This is not an agreement with Egypt or Jordan or the Emirates. It's a whole different concept and a whole different idea. And how do I know it? Because before these elections that happened, I was watching the intel, and I was very involved in the details. And what Hamas was telling one to the other, they said, in order to achieve our goals, we need to use the system that was invented by the Americans and their allies, the Israelis, which call elections and democracy. Then we will take over, and then we will use it. As simple as that. And that's what they were doing.
And last question, General Gallant. We spoke a lot about threats and challenges and many negative issues. Do you have something to say about opportunities? Maybe, something optimistic?
I'm very optimistic. You just interviewed me about the 5 negative%. I have a 95% which is positive. And I believe in the Israeli people and the Israeli youth. And I think that what was shown in this war was a tremendous spirit from the first day, that instead of running from the fire, people were running towards the fire. Civilians and soldiers, reserves and regulars, rank and file, everybody. This is something. I believe that the future of Israel depends very much on the will of the people in Israel to live here and to raise their families here. And some of you will ask me, as I was asked a few months ago in Miami, I was asked if there is a terror event or a war every year or every few years, what will keep the people here? And I said to them, if there is an hurricane in Miami every year, why do you stay in Miami? And the reason is that you can prepare yourself and overcome this obstacle, hurricane or a war, and in between you need to have good life. If we will have good life for the people here, education, as all of you are dealing with, future of hope, strong economy, good infrastructure, people will live here, and Israel is considered to be one of the 5 beloved countries by their own people in the world, even though we have so many wars. And plus, to conclude this interview, with your permission, I would say that, you know, the options that the Jewish people had in the last 2,000 years are much worse. We know that. And no matter where you live, Israel is your home. You live temporary in America. Israel is your home. Thank you.
Well, first of all, let me tell you, Yoav, that your wife enjoyed the interview very much. I sat next to her. I wish my wife would enjoy interviews with me in the way that... Now, more seriously, I want to say something. I hope it would not adversely affect in the future your, when you run to a campaign to be the prime minister. I hope what I'm going to say now wouldn't cause any damage to your... So, for those of you who do not know, Yoav became a kind of a hero for people which are not supporting his party at all and probably didn't vote for him. That was before October 7. You know that there was the issue of the legal reform, which is still ongoing, and when the legal reform, became a very kind of a very critical issue for many of us, and there was a social crisis in Israel, Yoav Gלנט, as the Minister of Defense, decided one day to stand up before the Prime Minister. Probably have tried to do it personally, and it didn't work, so he decided to say it publicly, and actually warned against the risk, the external risks to Israel because of the internal crisis. And that brought Benjamin Netanyahu actually to fire him, to dismiss him, to say, I don't want you to be the Minister of Defense in Israel. Now, after that announcement, all universities in Israel, including Ariel University and Bar-Ilan University, it's important, you know, in those kind of issues, Ariel University is 10 times more important than Tel Aviv University, because nobody would suspect that it's a political issue. So all universities in Israel decided to go to strike. Actually, that was the only time in which all universities together went to strike to protest against what the Prime Minister was about to do. And with the universities, like 2 hours after the universities have announced it, also the Rosh HaHistadrut, right, the head of the union, the largest, the labor union, I'm sorry, the largest labor union also actually declared of a strike, and the entire Israel was paralyzed. And after 12 or a little bit more than 12 years, the Prime Minister withdrew. Hours, I'm sorry. They decided to withdraw. He withdrew from that announcement, and as you know, Yoav Gלנט stayed at his office. And you know, Yoav Gלנט has a very impressive military career. He was, among other things, the head of an elite unit, probably one of the best in the world, and he's a brave soldier. But you know, we have many brave soldiers. We don't have so many brave politicians. And politicians who are ready to take risks and to put their own self-interest aside for the social interest, for the interest of the state of Israel. People with conscience, well, we do have people in conscience among us, I hope, but among politicians, it's a kind of a rare characteristic. And I'm really, you know, with so many others, we appreciate very much what you have done, and I wish you really all the best, whatever you do.
Thank you very much to Yoav Gallant and Dr. Mילשטיין. Thank you.